What you see here is actually a project that we did out of our Boston office over the last year. You may have seen it or one of the other projects that we've done. It's called Killing Kennedy. And this is one in a series of projects we've done for National Geographic. We did one about Killing Lincoln, which is a docudrama, the first docudrama we did a site for them about. Also experienced the 80s, and one after this called Live from Space. So we wanted to take you through this one a little bit, not necessarily showing the project specifically, but a little bit about what we had to do to be able to make it happen. I think one of the important things to keep in mind is that, you know, behind any finished product, there's a lot of work that goes into the creation of it. So hopefully this will give at least a little bit of a glimpse of sort of the process that we went through to make something like this on a very short time frame. So to kick off, I'm going to show a little bit overview of the video so you can kind of get a gist for the project, then I can jump into the details.
The National Geographic Channel tasked us with creating a companion site for their latest docudrama, Killing Kennedy. We answered with a unique approach, bringing two stories to life with a navigational structure that enhanced our dual storyline. The experience is set to one of Kennedy's favorite poems, I Have a Rendezvous with Death. The storyline opens with a haunting poem, written by World War I soldier Alan Seeger and read by his nephew, legendary folk singer Pete Seeger.
I have that rendezvous with death when spring brings back blue days and fair.
We breathe new life into this American tragedy by creating an interaction mechanism that also acts as a narrative device. The split-screen site meaningfully pushes content in opposite directions, leading the audience through the life stories of John F. Kennedy and Lee Harvey Oswald until they meet one fateful day in Dealey Plaza. We made it work across desktop, tablet, and mobile browsers by creating a responsive site that delivers an experience unique to each device, all while staying true to the parallel stories construct. Technology faded into the background to let the content shine, and created in-the-moment perspectives that take users from Minsk to Cuba to on the ground in Dealey Plaza, up into the window of the Texas School Book Depository. Every moment within the site was shareable, and we invited participation offline too. A downloadable calendar reminder brought the community together in a JFK remembrance, 50 years to the minute of his death at Parkland Hospital. KennedyandOswald.com has already been used as a teaching tool in classrooms and as an industry example of how technology can make storytelling more engaging. So engaging that visitors spend an average of 21 minutes on the site, proving that even a well-known and oft-told story deserves a closer look.
So this is, we've actually finally realized that we got buy-off to make this project about a little less than 3 months before the show aired. So we'd been working, we worked on a couple projects previously with National Geographic Channel, so we kind of knew that this was sort of the standard operating procedure and what we needed to do depending on when the show was sort of, the script was final enough to be able to start creating some content around it. We did know at least enough that that we could get started on the bones of the story, though. So I think, you know, what I talk about a little bit in here is sort of like from the time we knew it could be a real project to how it was made, but there was also a previous to that an entire process of being able to explore the viability of the project prior to sign off. So there was a lot of sort of exploratory work by a few people to be able to help make this thing real enough to be able to sell through, and that's almost a whole separate subject of another talk. But in terms of you know, having a gist of an idea and a sketch of it, and then being able to go to a final product in about I would say about 10 weeks was sort of something that we discovered through this project. A little bit about the process. I think one of the things that we sort of found out through this process is that making it very physical was incredibly helpful. So, and that's not only in terms of like workspace and physical places where people work together, but also in like the deliverables that we were creating. So from the very first phase of this project, we were creating paper prototypes to illustrate concepts rather than even going to sort of digital stuff. So I think that was very important. Creating tactile things that people could interact with was very valuable. It helped really illustrate these sort of kinetic concepts in a way that people found really, really meaningful. And, you know, this is where pop-up book design became a very, very handy reference, and being able to just have holes cut in paper to slide things. And just having a sketch, doing that in 10 minutes and being able to show it to somebody, they got the concept very quickly. You know, we actually had a war room that lived for the entire duration of this project, which is not terribly uncommon, but I have a picture of it a little bit later on, but it looked like something from A Beautiful Mind. And one thing that we realized is that even with an entire room dedicated to the project, that we still couldn't fit all the content in a room physically. So we had to go chapter by chapter to be able to really illustrate the concept in its entirety. Would have taken probably most of the rooms that we had because of the level of content. Now, this project actually was a little bit different than some of our other ones that actually, Killing Lincoln, for example, had far more content than this one did. So this was actually an effort to keep the content at a manageable amount. The other thing that we had to deal with is just the design constraints of actually having a timeline of 10 weeks from boots on the ground to actually having something out there in the market. So we had to keep this very agile. We had to make a lot of our design decisions based on that, and being able to have a very strong sort of producer project manager that was a collaborator, a creative collaborator with experience design and technology and writing and visual design was very important. It was sort of a team effort there. This is an example of our war room. I believe that was, I think that was only one chapter of the story. So collecting the content and selecting content became a very physical process, and it allowed people to connect with it and rearrange it and sort of help create a story in their mind without actually having to commit pen to paper or mouse or keyboard to computer. And there's actually a video we have of what it looks like sort of in there that somebody captured. And that's Mark Boroyan, who actually was the experience designer on this project, who couldn't make it here today, but he's immortalized in this video. But and one thing that we found really interesting is the fact that we actually had, we had art directors, we had and designers, we had developers, we had experienced designers, and all those people were active collaborators in the creative process. That's one thing that I think that's sort of fairly unique about Mullen as an ad agency, is that our approach is very multidisciplinary in a way that in the way that a lot of product design firms are, and that's quite intentional. In terms of like the team structure, we did find that too many and too few are equally big problems. So I think I mentioned on the earliest phase of this project, there was just a few people that sort of helped sort of foster the core idea and help get the idea sold through, and then the team grew a little bit more and a little bit more. I think by the end of the project, we had a pretty good sized team, but those people were made up of all different disciplines. So we actually had folks who were copywriters, some people who were content experts, some people were experienced designers. And, I think the core team was 4 to 5 people, but at its peak, there was probably about 20, 25 people working on the project simultaneously. Being flexible, I think, is very important on a project to be able to, you don't know what you're going to need until you get into it in a lot of cases, because you have to adapt to sort of changing things that are sort of affected by film production, things that you have no control over and you have to react to it. I think the idea of having a physical process is very important. This is sort of some of the original sketches for some of the interaction mechanisms. And it's funny because we actually had quite a few different creative concepts. We had like bullet cam view, we had sort of a diorama view approach, metaphor. We had this sort of sliding parallel storyline approach, and it was sort of, I think any one of those projects could have turned out really incredible. I think the end result, having these two sort of separate. We didn't intend to go into this project creating a sort of parallax scrolly telling site, but it turned out that was a really great way of telling the story. So. So it was a very physical process, some more deliverables in terms of like how we were able to illustrate this to our clients, how to explore the various parallax items and how to communicate it. There's also the logistical challenges of having a lot of people that need to do a lot of work in a very short period of time. We needed to make sure that we were very, very efficient, because if we weren't, that was going to make the difference between the project being awesome and the project not actually being successful at all. So we basically carved out about 2 weeks to be able to do the groundwork and figure out the project flow. We ended up having weekly dev sprints. It was a very collaborative process between the creative concepting of something and then the execution of it. And what we found out is that, we created a toolbox of interactions that we could leverage throughout the entire story. But by being able to create that library up front, it took a lot of time, but then we were able to repurpose that stuff across the board for all the future chapters. So here you can kind of see like an overview of how we outlined. I mean, you start looking at it in a grid like this, you're like, oh, how did we even do this? There's a lot of work that we had to get done in a very short period of time. But by being able to hand off a design of one chapter and the sort of development of that and the QA of it in a sort of a stair-step interactive way, ended up working out. It was terrifying. And it was exhausting, but it was totally worth it. I think one of the things that was most valuable to us was just some of the language that we heard from the community internationally about this, and people talking about it using it as an education and teaching tool. We just wanted to tell a story, and people sort of attached to it the idea that this could actually be a new way to help educate folks. So. In wrapping up, I think a few things. There's always these things that you really wanted to do in a project. We definitely wanted to have more time to do more in-depth user testing. We did very impromptu, quick stuff, but we didn't do anything sort of more involved than that. Having a little bit more time to spend more time on features would be great and refine functionality. But the thing that we all wanted to put in there that we weren't able to is the conspiracy Easter eggs. So we wanted to create an entire section that's dedicated to that. For both creative and time reasons, weren't able to do that. But that's all I've got here. Great.